Well, hello there, and welcome to the first of the webinars that we're staging for 2021. If I haven't spoken to you already, Happy New Year. We're already 1 month into it, being this webinar being staged on the 4th of February, and just getting a sense of slightly different mood here in Australia. Whilst we're coming out of our summer vacations, it's a perfect opportunity for employers to be looking at employing new people. And I thought, look, rather than talking about outplacement stuff a lot of the time, there's also this other part of the offering, and hopefully you'll all be able to enjoy this, and that is about you getting a job. So who am I? That's me. I'm Greg Weiss. I'm your lead coach at Career 365. I'm working from home today. It's my background here, and I'm really looking forward to actually spending some time with you whilst we're going through some content that you may have thought of, but sometimes people, I can't assume that they actually know everything. And I don't think you want to be assuming anything either. I can tell you a story of, whilst I get this thing started up, I can tell you a story about somebody I know very, very well who's going to be starting a job on Monday. Yes, people are being employed, happily so. And they've taken some of these tips and engaging real well before employment. So let's get into it, because onboarding, and you've got the job, and here's what to do before you start. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a bonus insight into some things that you want to be able to do when you do start. Okay, so if you can just let me know that you're there. I can see already that we've got some people saying that they can see things. So let's get into it. Just feel free to bank up any of the questions you've got. My preferred mode is to get through a deck and then have you ask some questions, okay? Let's get into some things here. I've already explained who I am. I do a lot of onboarding coaching, as well as outplacement coaching. And I'm sure that we've interacted one way or the other. Those 3 books there, well, I'm going to show you here. That's Career Success here. Let me actually stop here's the Career Success book. And it's about 140 odd pages plus exercises. That's the one we're going to be talking about. But before that, in order, you've got Career Clarity. It's about 140, 150 pages there as well, and plus exercises. And then once you actually know what you want to do, there's Career Networking. It really is all about you getting some real insights into how to not only move into something you really want, how to find something so you don't just rely on recruiters. And then this book is what we're going to be largely talking about here. So I'm going to get back into this presentation. I'm going to turn my vision off here so it doesn't distract you, and we're off and running. So here are a few tips about before commencing, and the first is about clothing, dress code, and cleanliness. And what I mean by that is, in terms of the clothing, have you actually determined what the dress code is? I remember many years ago when I started my first job in recruitment work. God, many years ago, I won't tell you how many, that'll age me, but I remember I went out and bought some beautiful shirts, and only to turn up to find that I hadn't been properly pre-onboarded, and it was a white shirt office with a suit. So I'd spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars on some beautiful shirts, expecting to look $1 million, and I was in the wrong shirts. So suggesting to you that what you do is you check out the dress code. What I mean by, so whether it's formal, you don't want to turn up on the first day and being an immediate fish out of water. You want to make sure that it's appropriate if you haven't already checked that one out. Cleanliness. You might not have brand new wardrobe, but what you want to make sure of is that you're that everything's been either dry cleaned, washed, neatly pressed. Anything that's taken out of the box, that it's actually been ironed, so you don't have any creases. Remember those old Milford shirts we used to wear for our uniforms at school? I remember those all those years ago of also having creases on the shirts because my mum hadn't ironed the shirts beforehand, and you could tell whoever else's mums hadn't ironed the shirts. So the point is that check out point one, dress appropriately so you don't have, you're not a fish out of water, and two is just make sure that everything's clean, that you don't have any stains on any of the on anything. You brush your shoe, you polish your shoes, get everything all ready, and I'm going to be inappropriate here, and that is that regardless of culture, you don't want to actually have a situation that you haven't worn any deodorants. The number of comments I get from employers saying, "Oh my God, I never thought of this, but we should have actually made it very clear that this individual had that we all wear deodorants." And it is a cultural thing, but I won't go through all the details. But please make sure that for Australian circumstances and Western circumstances that you're wearing deodorant. Okay, I don't want to be inappropriate here, but I'm pushing the point. Okay, point two is about checking out your co-workers. Look, everybody's going to be checking you out, and you might as well find out as much as you can about your co-workers, whether it's your bosses, your boss, your subordinates, if you've got any, and you can just check out to see what their official profiles are at LinkedIn. But you might want to just get a sense about what it is that they do outside of work on Facebook and Instagram, so you can start to connect on some form of banter, some type of connection with and communicate to find out what it is that that really they're interested in outside of work. Point three. No, actually, before we get into that, it's not stalking people, but it's just, it's being duly diligent. Do you connect with people who you're working with through Facebook and Instagram? I don't recommend you do, but if you can, and for the simple reasons that there's a fine line and a line of demarcation between work and social. Instagram and Facebook are deemed to be more social, whereas LinkedIn, whilst a social medium, it's for work. So connect via LinkedIn, but just get some background, some insights, Instagram and Facebook. Point three, now onto that, research your employer before you get into it. Now, you may have actually had an interview a month ago, for argument's sake, and given a month's notice, and you haven't actually had any interactions. What I would do is get up to speed with some of the latest developments. If anything has been posted, say, on LinkedIn or other social media or in the news before you get in, so you're really clear about who it is that you're joining and what they've been doing and any of the latest developments. So make sure that you're well versed ahead of commencing with your employer, so you know what the current issues are. Let's get into this one. Point four, get clear on your job description. It would be a really good idea if you revisited before you commenced what your job's all about. And only today I was helping a client define a job description, some other work that I'm doing, and defining their responsibilities and their KPIs. And these are important things for you to be able to get your head across, and that is really work out what it is that's in your job description. So what are those responsibilities? What are the challenges that you're likely to be meeting? Your interview may have actually fleshed some of that out, but what I'm going to be encouraging you to do is to get fresh on that, as well as the KPIs. How are you going to get measured? Because at the end of the day, you're going to be measured within a particular time frame, and the spotlight is going to be heavily on you in the first, literally first few seconds, first weeks, first months, your first interactions with people as you start the job. So so I just want to make sure that what you are is you're very clear on your job description. Makes a lot of sense there. What about point 5? Ask your boss if they'd like you to do anything before you commence. So the person I was thinking about and starting to talk about this morning, at the start of today's webinar, was starting off on Monday morning and has reached out today about what, if anything, they need to prepare ahead of them commencing. And they also just confirmed that they were told to turn up at a certain time. Oddly, it was at 10 a.m. Well, maybe not so odd for a Monday because they may have a Monday morning meeting, etc. So you need to check out what it is that's going to go on beforehand if you haven't been advised. You don't want to turn up at 8:30, only be twiddling your thumbs that you're not turning up to something that you may or may not have been necessarily included in yet. And point 6 is a very important thing, and that is that we actually encourage you to always take a break or a rest and mark the difference between where you're at, and if you're transitioning immediately from one job to another, or importantly, even if you've been on the market for a while, is just to take a break, get into a different scene, go up the coast or down the coast, wherever it is, whatever gets you rested ahead of what will become your new career. Take point 6 really seriously. Okay, let's go into point 7, which is a very important one too. Checking out the commute and test run it. Have you worked out what it's like to get into your job? If you're physically working at a particular place, how long is it going to take? Check out with Waze app, W-A-Z-E, how long it might typically take at certain times of the day. I think Google Maps, that owns Waze, is starting to take this functionality on as well. But you can actually check out what the typical time periods are if you're commuting by driving to work, how long it's going to actually take you to get there. It will actually vary things according to peak hour versus just off-peak times, and you can see what that's like on an average. But I would strongly suggest that what you do is you do a dry run, a test run of it as well. So as an example, if you're intending to take a bus, make sure you know where the bus stops are. How long is it going to take you to get from the bus stop to the bus stop, then from the bus to maybe the train station to your place and then to work, so that you're there on time and not flustered, and certainly not on the first day. And then finally, bring a note, paper and pen. I attended a meeting yesterday where I had a note, paper and pen, having thought about this particular webinar topic. And there were 8 of us in a room, and 5 of the participants hadn't brought anything to write on, and then were floundering. And it sort of dumbfounded me a little bit, to be honest. So why don't you actually bring your own note paper and your own pen to start off with, and obviously you'll get introduced to the stationery cabinet after that, unless of course you have your own special book that you'd like to write in, its own special pen. Now these may sound like very obvious things, but they are important, and if your employer has been communicating with you beforehand, then you'll probably have an idea about what they deem as important. But otherwise, what I'd be strongly suggesting is that you take those 8 points on board and then some. Now, I've also said, as far as bonus material for today is concerned, I just want to give you an overview of the 7 steps to successful onboarding. And again, I'm just going to turn this on so you can get to see. It's from that book. It's that book there that talks about these things. And when I'm onboarding people and helping people to successfully onboard, I ask them to have a look at thinking about each of these top line things. I'm not going to delve deeply into this. I am going to suggest that what you do is you have a look at this, or talk to me about onboarding support, what that actually looks like. We've helped a number of people successfully transition in around these the fraught period of a probation period. And I don't know how long your probation period is, but they've gone typically longer over time. And there are some statistics around how many people don't successfully pass an onboarding. Sorry, my phone rang. I thought I'd actually I turned that off. My apologies here, but we're going live. So what I wanted to actually say is that these 7 points are here to help you focus on what's important to succeed within your probation period. So the first one is about shared values. Think about a relationship that you're in and what makes it happen. Friendships, maybe the relationship with your significant other. It's not just about the physical attraction. It's much, after that dies down, it's much more around the connection that you have with somebody, personalities click and so on and so forth, but it's really very much around your shared values. And I've taken these things, by the way, from the McKinsey 7S framework. And you're going to see that in here. If you can have a look at that, you'll see that we're going to be tripping through these 7 points based on the renowned McKinsey 7S framework for strategy alignment. And so the first one is, and the central one here in the McKinsey 7S framework, is all to do with values and shared values. And so I want to make sure that you can see that there. So at the center, you'll see right there is shared values, and that's why we're talking to you. We're talking to you here. So the McKinsey 7S framework for strategy alignment is important. The first one is shared values. Ensure you and your employer's values overlap and identify the behaviours that underpin these values. That's important. Behaviours that underpin these values, not just values, but what actually is that. And so this is foundational to the success of the onboarding program, the organisation, and your own role. So understanding what it means, for example, in your role, and first of all about overlap, but also, and I like often using the example of, say, going the extra mile. A value might be going the extra mile. What does going the extra mile mean to a CEO versus, say, somebody who's working the phones, say in a call center? They're different things. Or a salesperson, for example. So they're very, very different. You'll need to actually understand not only the values of the organization, but the behaviors in your role that underpin that. The second step as far as the McKinsey 7S framework for strategy alignment is structure. We're encouraging that what you do is you master the formal and informal structures to ensure you understand the formal reporting lines. They're very clear, as well as the hidden networks tapping into information and influence. And that's that second part, which is really important for you to really be cognizant of. And that is, whilst there's a reporting structure, there's always behind the scenes a different back channel. There are different areas of influence and so on and so forth. So that's an important thing there too. Again, we talk about that within the book in a more deeper dive. And if we were to coach with each other, that you'd appreciate that more so as well. Okay, the third part of the to look at, and the third aspect of the McKinsey 7S framework for strategy alignment is managing your personal brand to ensure others gain an overwhelmingly positive impression of you. So first impressions count. As we know, and you'll see at the bottom of our logo on the left-hand side of this frame, start strong and finish strong. So first impressions count, last impressions count. And the important thing is that especially when you're starting off and meeting new people, that you're going to be managing your personal brand to ensure others gain an overwhelmingly positive impression of you. So first impressions count, and the better your impressions that you can create initially with anybody that you're going to be involved with, they're going to stick. They're really important. Okay, and again, we'll take you through that in the book, or take you through that in coaching. Okay, the fourth one is skills. How do you apply your unique strengths to your role and minimize your weaknesses for career success? This is an important thing that hopefully you've been recruited into an organization that overlaps your strengths, whether it's functional, learned, personality. And so you've got skills and hopefully aware of these skills. The more aware you are about your skills and your strengths, the better you'll be. And you need to be in a position where you're able to demonstrate those skills as best as possible. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't get trained up in some things, and over time those become skills and some strengths by using. But the last thing I would encourage you to have accepted is something that doesn't apply any of your unique strengths or any of your strengths, and that you're actually recruited into a job where your weaknesses are largely used. So you can always nowadays outsource your weaknesses, and you can get some help there, but the important thing is to be able to apply your unique strengths. Gallup has really pushed this point home around applying your strengths to anything you do. And again, we can take you through just making sure how you do that. Okay, the next step, the fifth step in terms of the McKinsey 7S framework for strategy alignment, is that how do you set up 1 to 2 winning projects to energize those people around you and build trust, credibility, and value. So don't bite off too much in the early stages. Think of what 1 or 2 winning projects you can absolutely nail during your probation period. So it builds confidence within yourself, as well as confidence within the organization that you are the right hire for that particular role. And again, taking this at a superficial level, we deeper dive in the book, but also in terms of the coaching aspects when we work with you on that side of things. So you want to be very particular about which, you might be throwing a whole lot of things, and the more thinly you spread yourself, the harder it's going to be to deliver on things. So learning how to push back, getting a sense of which 1 or 2 are the most important ones in the initial stages of your employment. They're very important. Okay, so the 6th step is of the McKinsey 7S framework for strategy alignment is staff, learning how to fit and where to contribute by agreeing with your manager on the context of your role. Okay. There's one thing having a role, but the second is the context and fitting in well. And so it's understanding the organization, understand what the organization's aims are all about, learning what your role's doing in the cog of many cogs or many wheels, and then understanding the rationale, the why of your role. Now, it might be reasonably obvious around that out of interview, but again, the number of people, what I'd encourage is that if you find out what your manager is going to be measured on and you work towards that, especially around these interchange, what 1 or 2 projects, and then learning how to fit and contribute those 2 would interplay potentially with each other. And if you know how your manager is going to be evaluated, then it makes a lot of sense for you to be able to actually learn then how to fit. Sorry, did I say about how your manager is going to be evaluated? How your manager is going to evaluate you at probation, you know, as your probation period expires and you're going to go through to permanent. So I'm going to labour this point and just say how important it is for you to liaise, to work closely with your manager in order to be able to actually do these two things here. Okay, your 1 to 2 winning projects and really knowing the context. And finally, out of the the McKinsey 7S framework for strategy alignment, I encourage you to actually get to know the way things work by establishing an accelerated learning agenda so you can contribute effectively. And there are different, you need to know your learning style. If you know neuro-linguistic programming as one model, you're either visual and or audible or oral, I should say, visual, oral, or kinesthetic. Visual meaning you learn by observing. Oral is you learn by hearing. And kinesthetic is you learn by doing or touching and feeling. Often people are maybe a visual kinesthetic. They see and do, or they hear and do. You need to learn, one, what it is that is your learning style, but also two is how can you break things down so that you can learn pretty quickly. And no doubt what you'll do is you'll find that there are some new IT systems. It may be, for argument's sake, that that you've worked on Macs and suddenly you're working in Windows, and or vice versa, and you're just going to need to get your head around that. Or it may be, for argument's sake, that you're working in a different CRM. Maybe you work with Salesforce, and then there's another one that may be like, say, Pipeline or Basecamp or anything along those lines. So you'll have to come up to speed with the new systems, phone systems, you know, and the like. So I don't want to labor the point, but these are really important things. And by aggregating all these points together, then what you'll do is you'll actually have an understanding about what the McKinsey 7S framework's all about. And let me just make sure that you can see. Just bear with me. For 1 sec, I am controlling this myself here. I just want to make sure that you're very clear about that. Okay, so what that means is that you can actually get to see all those reinforce each other that come out of the shared value side of things. And if you can get those 7 alignment choices into play, then that'll work absolutely brilliantly for you. Okay, now, as I've been sharing with you, there are those books. You can get into those books by following the URL. We sell those directly to you, and I can honestly say to you that they are, the reaction has been very, very solid to those. I'm very proud of having authored all 3 of those, and it basically, in paper form, it codifies a lot of the stuff that you've already got within your module program. But some people like the idea of also learning by reading, but you can also share that with people who are going through a similar journey but haven't been given a program such as yours for outplacement purposes. So this today we were talking about stuff to do with onboarding and pre-commencing, and then what to look out for when you do commence as well. But I'm going to ask if you've got any questions, and Sarah has listed the bit.ly, which is again, to get those books is bit.ly/career success book, and you can see that you can purchase those. Okay, so question I have is, I guess the protocols for starting a new job remotely are the same as if you were going into the office. An excellent question, and thanks for asking that. We are definitely working in unusual times, and it's even more important to be clear about making impressions through Zoom or what Microsoft Teams, whatever technology that you're using, on the working from home basis. Let's assume that that you've got somebody who's going to onboard you and help you understand what it is that you're trying to achieve. Work out what the mechanisms are. So the systems, do you use Slack? If so, how? What sort of channels you're getting invited into, and so on and so forth. But the protocols, those 7 steps that we've gone through about those alignment choices, they are no different, and maybe even more accentuated, because it's hard for you to create good first impressions through Zoom for some people. I know somebody who's a really confident individual who says Zoom is just appalling for them in terms of making an impression. They just don't engage with people well. Well, that's a new skill that we're all learning how to go about. The other thing is at the beginning of this program where we talked about today, I'm just zooming through here because the technology doesn't let me do it any differently, but it allows you to just refresh and see these points up here. And that is that all these points, the protocols at the beginning that right here, they're all important for you to be able to be aware of. I mean, obviously clothing and dress, maybe not so much, but everything else would certainly work. Okay, your commute and test run may not work either, but there will be increasing times that your employer is going to be expecting for you to be able to turn up to work, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. So you are going to have to actually work out what that commute time's like. Another question. And it must be harder to work out the hidden networks or reporting lines too. Any tips for navigating that in a remote environment? An excellent question. That is hard. The larger the organization and the more complex the organization, the harder it is. In the book and through coaching, we do advise people how to uncover where the real information and where the power sources are. Frankly, the more you meet people and you're inducted into the organization and you can meet the different personalities and the different stakeholders with whom you're dealing, it gives you an understanding about those power structures, those informal hidden reporting lines, or those networks and reporting lines. So I'd be overt with my manager, checking that out, and making sure that that you're speaking with other people to work out what your role's perception is, and who you might need to work through and with in order to get certain projects, certainly the 1 to 2 winning projects, successfully delivered. I hope today was really a good one for you. I love this topic. I think it's a really valuable one indeed. And you may not get to the point where you have a job as yet. But I'm going to encourage that you circle back to this particular webinar as a resource. The most difficult thing is that a lot of organizations orientate you maybe for a short while or induct you for a short while. That's very different to being properly onboarded. When you focus on those 7 points once you commence, and you have some form of support, whether it's from your manager or from somebody outside, the chances of you dropping out of an organization before the end of your probation or not making it past your probation period drop by a whopping 90%. It's not my research. It's been found by other very credible HR consultancies. So drops by 90%, but there are between 1 in 4, 1 in 3 chances, which are pretty high, that a probation period will fail. That's either somebody initiating on their side that the job wasn't cranked up to be what they thought it was, or on the other side is that the expectations of you whilst you were dating with each other, let's call that in the interview, versus getting married to each other and going steady, and that's basically the job. There's often a misalignment, and the expectations fall flat. So that's actually why onboarding is a really important thing. I want to, again, encourage you to go through your modules, feel confident in 2021 that jobs are out there. Connect with me, connect with Career 365, connect with your coaches. If you're interested in sharing these books with people who are going through similar situations to you but haven't been given outplacement, or otherwise, please just reach out to me. But it's been great. One last question I got is, do we have any onboarding modules, not the outplacement modules? The answer is yes. And you can reach out to me and find out more about what those are as well, around the different ways of engaging. There happens to be, I'll tell you one way that we've been doing things as well, and that is that, let's just say, for example, that you've got a job and you've still got some coaching left. We can flip you out of outplacement and into onboarding. And we've done that with quite a number of people, where they get more value of looking at the onboarding, what's required of them of onboarding, than hanging around for the Career 365 outplacement program for a whole year. So it just basically means then, just for argument's sake, just make sure I'm very clear here, and that is that, let's just say you get a job within 3 months. You've still got 9 months, for argument's sake, left of Career 365 outplacement. Well, what you do is you would get would flip you out, would get you into the onboarding piece, and you could use up, so the modules become those, and then you'd use up the interactions between you and your coach on onboarding support, and it really works great. I want to thank you so much for your time. I hope you got a lot out of that. Send me any questions or via email. Get in touch with me at gregw@career365.com.au. And happy February. Looking forward to connecting with you throughout the whole year, okay, in different guises. All the best.